Hey everybody, Star 6 Wars 1 here, and welcome to a special video discussion. It's been a while since I've done a discussion, and before I begin this discussion, I'd like to thank HS Media Nerd for the idea, because I probably would not have thought of it without you, so thanks. For this one, we're going to be doing a discussion video with Death Billiards, because while in my review I covered the basics of what I wanted to, I didn't really cover the characters or story that much due to spoilers. Well, no more. For this one, we're going to be spoiling basically everything about Death Billiards. Now, something I really enjoyed that I didn't mention was actually the setting. The setting just felt very surreal and just a very interesting little setting of looks like a bar, and honestly, it's like interesting setting. I don't mind it, and it was well animated to boot, so I liked it a lot. Also, almost immediately beginning this, it's like it feels like I've entered the Velvet Room for the Persona series, and when we find out what the actual plot of what's going on, it's at least otherworldly, so it's not too far off. Overall, I just really enjoyed the setting. It's very surreal and just doesn't feel quite right, but seems still welcoming. So, again, I really enjoyed it. Something I also didn't discuss was the setup itself. They're playing what is essentially supposedly a death game, a game where you're supposed to play for your lives, and it's billiards in this case, though it could have been any other game, who knows. What I like about this is that we're not told immediately what the stakes are, except for what happens when you don't play, which, I don't think I think I'd play in that case. Another thing I'm actually really enjoy about it was the game itself, and it was just showing very interestingly. In my opinion, as long as you can execute something really well, you can make a boring setup seem extremely interesting if you have the right animation, the right characters, the right story, and I think Death Billiards does that fairly well, because this could have easily bombed. But luckily it didn't, and it just was great. I guess before I go into the big reveal of what this plot is actually about, or what the setup's actually about, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the characters, or at least the one I called the Prick, who honestly doesn't have a name as far as I'm aware, or at least Death Billiards never said they have a names. And yeah, that's actually kind of a problem. I don't know what to call the other guy except Prick, and the old man Gramps. So from here on, that's what I'm gonna name the two. I like that Gramps plays very fairly and is actually really good, compared to Prick, who is good but not exceptional. He's just an average player. That's it. Gramps, from what we get to see of his brief past, is probably a champion, so it's most likely he entered in a tournament, so definitely Prick is up against some very fierce competition. And as he points out in that the game is no fair because his skill level's much higher than Gramps'. And Gramps' skill level is much higher than Prick's is. The other two are not phased in the slightest. But more on that later. Another big thing we get to see is very glimpses of their past. We don't see very much. No dialogue either, and I actually think it's pretty brilliant for that. Again, I think this could have easily bombed if they were just like with exposition, but no. Instead, it goes for the show, don't tell. Nothing is ever explained of their past except what is shown to us. and it shows just enough, giving off, at least for me, a bit of a Cowboy Bebop feel if you've seen Cowboy Bebop. Now, I guess the final things to mention are what actually happens to the characters, why they're playing this, and a few other little things. I guess first up, the why are they playing this? It's basically them deciding whether they are going to heaven or hell. Now, we're never exactly sure where they're going. That's kind of the funny thing. That's like almost come up with your own conclusion as to did they go to heaven or did they go to hell? It is never said, and although it may look obvious on the surface, I don't know if it is. Like, on the surface it'd be like, oh, Prick's going to hell and Gramps is going to heaven. The thing is, Gramps looks like he was a bit of a prick at one point, in his past, so we don't actually know who's going to heaven or who's going to hell. It could be either or, we will never know. Prick is also more like showing emotion like, this isn't fair, why is this happening to me? Probably because his life was ended much shorter than, say, Gramps was. As Gramps had fulfilled a mostly fulfilling life, though he did mention he was a vegetable at one point. Not sure what happened during that period, as we never actually see it, hence why I said the characters were underdeveloped, in that, although we had a show don't tell, there are only snippets, and not much is explained. I think it would have been better if the movie was a bit longer for that, but then again, you had what you had. I really like the setup of the fact that they're playing basically, and it's kind of a deciding point of whether they're going to heaven or hell. And the fact that the winner of the game really doesn't matter. At least I don't think it does. I think you're judging on their personalities, not exactly their gaming skills. Meaning that's why they're on equal footing as the guy in white, the white hair mentioned. Now, I mentioned earlier that the setting kind of reminds me of the Velvet Room. That's only further acknowledged by just how alien the white hair and the chick feel. They don't feel human. And at the end it's revealed, at least for white hair, he's not human. We don't know what he is, but he is not human. Which again only adds to my Velvet Room feeling. I think that's all I really want to talk about with Death Billiards, as I'd still recommend you watch it. It's a very short movie, and it's a fairly nice and enjoyable one, at least for me, and a very interesting one. Though with one final note, I do think the speeches about how humanity was a bit unneeded. At least in my opinion. I could almost call it pretentious, but I don't quite know if that's the right word for it, but I just felt it was unneeded. And just kind of got in the way of my enjoyment, but only a little. But again, that's just me. Anyways, that's all from me. This has been Star 6 Wars 1, and we'll see you guys next time.